Welcome back. I'm Kim Bailey. She's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec. Today we're going to talk about how you manage yourself and your team when you're in an organisation that is the subject of a takeover or acquisition or investigation or a combination of all of those things. I have been in a number of organisations that have been the subject of buyouts. And I've been in the organisation when it's been happening, and I've been brought into an organisation just after it has happened, where I've come to the smaller of the organisations. And the one that comes to mind most frequently, because it was fraught with the most problems for me when I was there, was a family-owned company in the construction industry, was a brand name, was well known in the construction industry, and it had been bought out by a bigger brand name and bought out for a very particular reason. The smaller family-owned company that had been around for not quite 50 years, I think 2 generations when I was there, had access to one part of the resources that needed to be made for the product that they were selling. They had very cleverly bought out all of the rights to these resources all along the New South Wales coast very early in the company's history. And so they held the keys to the kingdom in terms of the rest of this industry's supplies, because they were the ones who had this particular resource. So everyone had to buy off them. They also made the product when they had a following of people who in the construction industry who were brand loyal. So the decision when the bigger company bought them out was that they would maintain their fleet of vehicles with their product, because people would only want to buy their product, and so would the others. And they were very different, so you could identify them quite clearly. But what became obvious when I did my work with the organisation was that all of the product was the same. All of it was being made in the same places, in the same place, and just the different trucks were going in and getting their fill and going out. It became something of a joke to an outsider, even though I had been in the construction industry and I knew people in the construction industry who were loyal to one brand or the other. And here was I with this inside information that said, but you're buying the same product. It doesn't matter. And then it came down to other things that they found were different. But the process of looking after the people in the organisations, because I worked for the bigger company and was sent to the smaller company that had been bought out to look at their human resources processes and their records, and with a view to them being amalgamated into the one building. They were still going to always work as 2 separate companies, but they wanted to physically have them located in one building. So there was a bit more interaction and a bit more job sharing and all those sorts of things, and a bit more integration, slow integration of the workforces of the 2 companies, but still keeping the product and the identification of the company separate. A monumentally difficult task to do, and I was there for probably 3 months looking at that. Got it to a point where we did in fact move both organisations. Rather than have one organisation move into the premises of the other, we chose independent location, but it was a long way away from both of the previous locations, and so there was issues with that as well. But perhaps when I look back on it, that helped, because the focus became we're moving so far away, not we're moving these 2 companies together. The main issues I had in dealing with people within the organisation was with the managers of the family-owned company, because they had run it like a family company. So they had been overprotective. They'd given company loans to people who worked there. They had people with health issues that they were covering up for. So all of the things that you would not want to find in an organisation. The buying company had not found out during the process and didn't really need to know, I didn't think, because it wasn't going to be instrumental in the decision for them to buy or not to buy. So my task in dealing with those managers and the issues that some of them brought to light and some of them continued to hide was challenging. But if I look at it now, I probably wouldn't have handled it any differently. but I would have identified the manager types faster than I did, because I just went in thinking, well, they're managers, it's been a family company, and I made some assumptions about the managers. The thing for me in thinking about this question is, how could I have helped them to answer my questions, because I was the one coming in doing the investigation in inverted commas, doing the research, doing the background, and I was making decisions based on that activity. I wasn't consulting them. I was asking questions, and that was my role, was to make decisions and to make it happen. And they knew that, and they weren't happy with that. So I should have addressed that first up, but I didn't realise that they weren't happy with it until one of them yelled it for some extended period of time. And I thought, gee, they're not happy with me being here, really, are they? It just had not ever occurred to me, because I thought, well, they've known that the merger, the buyout was happening for 6 months, and then it took another 6 months for it obviously to go through. So they've had 12 months to get used to this idea. Why are they not over it now? Let's move on. I didn't identify that quickly enough. I didn't address it quickly enough. And so then I had problems with it.
There's a whole lot of learning in that example, which is good. Now, I want to look at a major organisation that is at two levels. One is as an employee of a larger organisation going through major change, even being sued for something to do with their products or services, and how to behave as an individual of such a company, how to behave as a manager in that company, and how to behave as a leader, like at the leadership level. I guess with those things, you could always default to, it's public knowledge. Some of it'll be public knowledge, but it's being investigated. So what happens is they have normally company policy that says, no, the PR team will handle this, right? That's not good enough when you are an individual in the company and you're outside and there's some news about your company. So people will say, how are you? Are you affected by it? What is the real story behind it? So there's that, if you like, responsibility on you as an individual to do the best that you can. Then you've got other people that are involved, and some areas of your organisation might be in trouble because they may have made a mistake, and some of those people might be your friends, some of those people being people you worked with for many years. So you've got so many layers of responsibility on you as an individual. How do you act? What do you do? Well, firstly, we're going to go back to Kim's most favourite topic, which is communication. So don't leave communication to chance or just what's in the public domain, because the reality is it's not gonna just stay there and everybody's gonna say, oh yeah, I'll just wait till the newspaper tell me. That's not gonna happen.
We all want instant news. That's why we have Instagram.
And you want to help people articulate. So keep your people, if you're in a leadership position, management position, the most important thing is communicate the best that you can within legal restraints or whatever it is, but communicate as best as possible. As an individual in the company, while all this is happening, just remember the reason you're there is because you're an employee and you're getting paid, and you still continue to get paid. Whether it's a merger, whether acquisition, whether it is an investigation, you've got to be true to yourself, continue to perform like you always have, the best that you can, and think of their customers and the shareholders. They deserve that because they're the ones that keep us in employment. So at the end of the day, continue to focus on that. Yes, we are human, and yes, we want to know what's happening, and yes, we have distractions, and yes, we're worried for some of our colleagues, and we worried about some part of our organisation around the world. But try and stay focused and positive, as hard as it is, and try to communicate by being honest with what you can and you can't say, and about what you're understanding. So you're at a party and somebody says, oh, I heard your company is being investigated for releasing this faulty product. Well, how do you say it? Do you defend your company where you say, of course you would, this is not the first time, blah, blah, blah. Just say, look, I work for the company and my knowledge of this particular case is limited to what's in the public arena. I can only share with you what I feel about the company from my experience and from me working there. And then you can then say what you like about the company, because otherwise you wouldn't be there if you left it. If you have got access to information that's not in the public, you've got to know whether it's legally allowable for you to communicate it. Is it part of the investigation? Or talk about other people that have been named.
All of that's very important, that if there's nothing else that you take away from today, it's that you do have a job, you are being paid, and that is your first and foremost focus. If you're in a situation where people ask you questions, and it might be as disappointing as it is, it might be that the press, for whatever reason, or the people who are doing the investigation, or the people who are doing their research before they buy the company, have done their homework, and they know that they can get at you by social means rather than by any other means, and so they will use those kind of tactics. Not everything is fair in these environments, and so you need to have thought about, before any situation arises, you need to have your well-rehearsed ad-libs, we like to say, so you have answers. I don't think that there's any situation where you should give out information about your organisation when these things are happening, because if someone in a social sense is asking you, they're asking you for the wrong reasons. They're not asking you because they're worried about you really, because if they were, they wouldn't ask you in a social environment, they'd ask you privately. If they're asking you in a social environment, they want inside information so they can run off and be important. All of us have a streak in us that craves attention. We want to be important in some way. We want to be the first person with this news, or with that bit of information, or with this picture, or with that joke. So I would caution you against saying anything at all, but I would really strongly recommend that you have an automatic response that you say. And people say, oh, I heard that your company's being taken over. Yes, I've heard that too. As simple as that, and move on, but always have something else to move on to, so that you don't just leave the empty space where they're waiting for an answer and you're waiting for them to move on or not ask you anything else. Or we heard that 10,000 of those airbags have been recalled. You know, how can a company how can you work? Now that's the question that's difficult. How can you work for a company that does that?
The point I want to go back to, it's really, really important. Never ever be seduced by that wanting to be part of the first and part of the news, because that is so short term. And I've seen examples where people did that, and it was a bit of naivety in that it wasn't meant to cause any trouble. But what they really did, all the big picture and this big issue that they were so keen to sound like they know about stuff, went away and became history, but their reputation got damaged in that people remembered they spoke when they're not supposed to. They either embellished, made up, or got excited by being in drama. And to me, remember your own reputation. So I just want to strengthen that point that you just made, Kim, because to me that can be dangerous for you as a person.
So we've talked about how you get social questions, but you might, in the course of actually doing your job, be part of the research that gets done, or the questioning that happens from external people. So how do you manage yourself and your team and your responses in that environment when it's an external person that's in asking you questions, and you know it's part of a process that has been officially sanctioned? So how do you gauge how much you give in your answers?
I always worked with the thing is tell the truth, tell the whole truth, answer the question. Don't answer 20 questions when you've been asked one. You've been asked a question, give it the full attention, complete answer, and absolutely the truth, and back it up with the information.
See, I think that's where people fall down, because when we say back it up with information,
Yeah.
then they start to stray from what the actual answer
Right.
was into the process
No.
that gets to that point. So we have to reinforce that we're
Yeah.
saying answer the question. Now we both come,
Yeah.
as you know, from a public sector background, so we know how to answer the question
Yeah.
and only the question. But that was good training.
Yes.
That it was instilled in us that this is what they're asking.
Yeah.
So there is an answer to that question, not all of the other stuff that happens around it.
Yeah.
Just answer the question.
And people who are investigating or inquiring, whatever, they would ask you other questions. So wait till you ask and then answer it, because otherwise you might confuse the picture.
Yeah.
We're not trying to say don't give them any more than what they need to know. And if you've got other relevant information and all that, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about so that you focused on the question, you're giving it absolutely 100% accuracy and truth. And then when they ask you the next one, you answer it and you give it exactly the same rigour.
And if when you get asked the question, it triggers half a dozen different responses, ask for clarification.
Yes, yes.
Don't answer the question you think they asked.
Yes.
Make sure you know what they're asking, and then you answer it.
Yeah.
I think we've covered that for you. Let us know if you have any more difficulty with these sorts of situations, and we'll think up, or we'll use a case study and give you some more particular examples. But for now, I'm Kim Bailey, she's Fulyana Osborne, and this is Inside Exec.